Welcome to this evening's board meeting. It's always great to see everybody's faces at these board meetings, so thank you for that. Real quick, before we get into our opening exercises, I just want to make a quick announcement. Mrs. Contra will not be joining us this evening, so stepping in to this role will be Mr. Rubert and Mrs. Hogg from the district office. And as you can see, there are only three of us up here this evening, so Dr. Sorensen and Mrs. Hill will not be joining us physically nor via the phone, so it'll just be the three of us that you have this evening. That said, Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, let's call this meeting to order at, it's like 6 o'clock p.m. All right, moving on to opening exercises 2.1, moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. Mrs. Ewing, do you mind leading us? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. All right, moving on to section 3, address agenda. Address agenda and consider adoption or recommend changes. Governing board members, any items that you would like to change in the agenda, whether it be order or items that you would like to pull from the consent agenda. Mrs. Rooks?
No, nothing to change or adopt, recommend changes.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing?
I would like to pull for clarification 6.3 on travel requests under staff on the consent agenda.
Okay. I'll second that. Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg? We have a request by Mrs. Ewing to pull travel requests from the consent agenda. Let me know when you guys are all set there.
We're all set.
All right. Thank you. That said, I do need a motion to approve the agenda as presented minus 6.3 travel requests for staff. I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented minus 6.3 travel requests.
And I will second that motion.
All right, Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, we have a motion made by myself and a second by Mrs. Rooks. Do you want us to run us through a voice vote, or would that be better? I don't have anything on my screen. What did it?
Yes, we can do a voice vote. President Sandoval?
Mrs. Ewing, did yours pop up as well? It did. For some reason, mine didn't. So if you don't mind on this item, if we can go through a voice vote, that'd be great.
President Sandoval?
Yay?
Ms. Rooks?
Yay.
Ms. Ewing?
Yay.
Motion passes with 5 yays and 2 absent. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to recognitions 4.1. Ms. Airy, welcome.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests. Over the last couple of months, students from across the district competed in a spelling bee in front of their peers at each of their school sites. Then on January 27th, one top speller from each elementary school competed at the district spelling bee. At this event, we announced one winner and 7 runners-up who are advancing to the next level. We are thrilled to share that for the second year in a row, Ethan Greenwood, an 8th grader from Coyote Hills Elementary School, won the district spelling bee. I'm going to ask that he stand. And Ethan won with the word gaffe. In case you want to use it in a sentence, it means an unintentional act or remark causing embarrassment. Very well done, Ethan. And he's joined by his proud parents that have come from Coyote Hills to be with us and to celebrate tonight. Unfortunately, Mrs. Abbott was unable to join us, being a little under the weather this evening, but we are so grateful for the two of you for taking the time out of your evening to bring Ethan here to us and to celebrate him. What a remarkable achievement, Ethan, 2 years in a row. So we are so glad to have an opportunity to congratulate you once again. And Ethan, I'll invite you up. Governing board members, I know you may have questions or comments for him.
Ethan, welcome, sir. How are you?
Good.
Very good. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
How are you feeling right now?
Good.
No, congratulations. That's a huge achievement and accomplishment. And, you know, we're proud to have you in Coyote Hills Elementary and in our district. And I know that you must have some really proud parents over there. And I want to thank you for raising your son and for working with him. That's amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing?
Congratulations on your win. That's super exciting. I know that there's a lot of kids that go out for this, and it's a pretty big event in PUSD. And congratulations to the family as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, I'm going to echo what my fellow board members just stated. Ethan, I mean, it's the last couple of years, I was the pronouncer for the spelling bee and scheduled to do it this year, but unfortunately I fell ill. But it's definitely one of the activities that I definitely am inspired by and really excited to be a part of each and every year. But yeah, just a great job on, you know, always working on being the best version of yourself every day and putting in the work. But the quick question for you, 2 years in a row, I mean, what do you do to prepare leading up to the spelling bee?
We have to do a lot of practice every day.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, it's phonetically reading some of those words, even me as an adult, it's not easy. I mean, they'll give me the binder months in advance, and I'll use Google often, for sure, without question. So that's just remarkable. Great job again, and congratulations. Just continue to put in the work and be great. So thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Congratulations. Now, Ethan will go on to compete at the Regional B and will, of course, bring you updates, and we are wishing him much success at that level. I do have to mention he is not just an incredible speller, but a musician as well. So we will be sending him off here shortly. He has to get back up to Coyote Hills for the Junior High Honor Band rehearsal. So we wish you well, and we thank you so much, Ethan. Congratulations again. Well, we have one additional recognition this evening. This week, schools across the nation are celebrating their counselors as part of National School Counseling Week. And we are thrilled to have an opportunity to share the unique contributions our school counselors bring to our campuses. National School Counselors Week highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for their career. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our school counselors, but first share with you a little bit about what their role consists of in our district. They are actively engaged in helping students examine their abilities, strengths, interests, and habits. They work in partnership with parents as they encounter academic academic and life challenges. They focus on positive ways to enhance students' academic and career development, and they work with our educators to provide a system where students can realize their fullest potential. Our school counselors are certified, experienced educators with a master's degree in school counseling, which makes them an integral part of the total educational program that directly supports our high school students. From presentations given throughout the year to working with individual students to help them meet their academic goals, our school counselors help our students to be the best that they can be and to achieve success beyond their high school experience. We are so proud to have them here with us and to introduce them to you. I'll share also one of the roles that they play in our district that's very important. They're there in time of critical need on our campuses. And in a crisis and in a moment of grief on our high school and elementary campuses, which unfortunately can happen from time to time, they are among the first to respond and offer support to our staff members and to our students. I know board members, you know firsthand when we've had to make those calls to you while we're making them, our counselors are deployed across our district providing that support. So we are very, very grateful for them. We have invited the lead counselor from each of our high schools to be here with us tonight. I'm going to ask each one of them to stand so that we may recognize them. Melissa Setta from Sunrise Mountain High School. Leslie Deek from Peoria Flex Academy. Katie Gainey, Raymond S. Kellis High School. Jennifer Goldman from Ironwood High School. Jennifer Luque from Centennial High School. Rochelle Nettle from Liberty High School. Michelle Stoffi from Peoria High School. And Liz Vito from Cactus High School. Also joining us this evening is Marcy Bieber, our lead school counselor, supporting all of them across the district. Marcy, we're so grateful to you and the support you provide. I'll ask you to come up on behalf of our school counselors and governing board if you have any questions or comments for Mrs. Bieber.
Welcome, Mrs. Bieber. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
Wow, that was amazing to hear how much support that you bring to our students, working with their parents and just providing them those academic needs and support. Thank you all for the work that you do. For me, to hear that you are so involved with the parents and partnering with them and in communication with them is really great, because when I've seen out there in, for instance, the American Counselors Association, just some of the things that surround that organization and how they don't want to partner with parents, it's just really saddening to see that. And so I'm so glad that you all are willing to work with the parents, help these kids, and be in our district for that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing?
Thank you all for all the hard work that you do. I want to say, and I'm sure that you guys are all very seasoned, you've been here for a long time, but during the pandemic, you guys were amazing. The counselors were amazing in rearranging those schedules over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I know that was tireless work, and it was so appreciated. Liberty did an amazing job. That's where my kids go to school. That's where they went. Liberty did an amazing job with that, and I appreciate that. I myself have a master's in guidance counseling, so I know all of the training that you've went through, and I know all the different dynamics of the job, and I appreciate everything you do and how you support the students. And I can say I was at Ironwood High School today, and I was talking to a particular student, an amazing student, and she was talking about things that she had been through, and if it wasn't for all of those wraparound services and the counseling and support that she received at Ironwood, that when she wasn't getting that support at home, Ireland became her home, and it made such a difference for her and where she is now. So I really, really appreciate everything you do, so thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, I mean, it's an entire week nationally dedicated to you, individuals with your hearts. Mrs. Ewing brought up, as we went through COVID, and, when you talk about educating the whole child and meeting our students where they're at and what you do to inspire hope in our students and just hone their skills around collaboration and cooperation and career paths as they build their own path, and just giving them the confidence to dream big. So thank you for what you do every day to not only focus on the academic success of our students, but also the brain health and that support that our students need to be successful in and out of the classroom. So you're very much appreciated. Thank you to each and every one of you.
All right, thank
Ms.
you.
Beaver.
I just want to say thank you for the recognition. That it means so much to us and the 38 counselors across our district that aren't here but are represented by these lovely ladies that I love so much. But thank you so much, School Board, Dr. Reynolds. We appreciate the opportunity to serve alongside our parents, alongside our community members and our administration and teachers, but most importantly, the amazing students in Peoria. So we just appreciate the opportunity so much. And again, thank you so much for the recognition. We have amazing kids and we're really lucky to work with them.
Thank you. Congratulations again. All right, moving on. Ms. Airy, we good? All right. Moving on to 4.2, board comments. Mrs. Ricks?
Yes, so I wanted to start with something with my board comment. Isaiah 41:10, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteousness. I first wanted to congratulate all the students also who worked hard on their patriotic speeches this week. I also wanted to thank the Frontier Elementary staff and Liberty High School staff for giving me some tours of their campuses. I really liked the reading interventionist at Frontier Elementary and seeing the teacher work with the students with what the needs that they need. That was pretty awesome, and Frontier was my school, so it was pretty awesome to walk through those hallways again and see those memories attending Frontier Elementary. Liberty High School, it was awesome to go see the PBSN classroom with the students and the teachers, Mr. Byrne, great program. I loved seeing that at Liberty High School. I do want to say, though, that I find it really disappointing that with all of these problems on the campuses right now in our district with vandalism, drugs, and fights, that the district has not made an effort to share that the Arizona Department of Education has a school safety grant that schools can apply for school resource officers. And it would support security and safety for the students and staff. I was told that this process is too complicated by our superintendent, and I have to disagree. It should never be complicated when it comes to the safety of our children. I made phone calls with individuals of the process and worked hours on that, and I discovered that it is pretty simple to apply for this grant. I want to say that it's hard for me to sit here when we have 2 police officers guarding a room of adults at these board meetings, or we have them at our football games. And I greatly appreciate their service in protecting us, but how can we sit here and not want ways to figure out for SRO officers at every campus to protect and ensure our children's safety? We should be making this a top priority. If we allow funds to be used for social workers, other things on the agenda, grants, budgets, our main focus for safety at schools, then let's give a paid night off to our officers at the board meetings and football games, and let's have social workers provide protection for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ricks. Mrs. Ewing?
Thank you. Glad to hear you got out to some of the schools. I got out to some of the schools as well. So I wanted to go ahead and thank principal. I was out at Ironwood, as I mentioned. So thank Russell for showing me around with four of the student councils, students, and that was pretty amazing. I was out at Liberty High School, so thank you, Sean Duguid, for giving me that tour. Centennial, Cactus, Heritage, Saguaro, Elementary School. I had fantastic tours with all of those. Heritage has that amazing STEAM program over there, so that was great to see. And then I had an opportunity today, earlier this week, to be a part of the Met Advisory Council. I was at that meeting, so thank you to all of those individuals who take part in that. And then the Parent Leaders Organizational Meeting, thank you to all of those PTO, PTSO, principals, vice principals, all of those who come out to learn more about the district. And Robert Panzer did an amazing job, our Director of Arts Education, doing a presentation. And I also just wanted to thank, I know the textbooks, the curriculum committee is working really, really hard on making sure that, well, they're working very hard, and I want to thank them for coming in and doing that, stepping away from their campuses. The parents who've been giving comments and so forth for all of the curriculum that's sitting out there. So I appreciate all of the community input. And I wanted to say thank you to the Citizens Advisory Committee as well, who's individuals in the community who've been coming in to take part in that. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, the only thing I have this evening is kind of piggybacking on what Mrs. Rooks was talking about. It's you know, when we talk about educating the whole child and our village in Peoria Unified to ensure the success of, you know, our target audience, which are our students, what I do love about our SROs is the focus on resources, you know, within that acronym, how they become ingrained in the overall really culture, vision, and purpose of Peoria Unified. The relationships that they develop from end to end, you know, from our students to our families, our teachers and staff, is amazing. You know, it's having those individuals, you know, be there as, yes, somewhat of a deterrent, but again, you know, their hearts and want to be a part of, you know, this district and what we do on behalf of 38,000 students is amazing. So those individuals, men and women that we have, you know, at our sites that cover, you know, our elementary schools as well, are just invaluable. So I just want to give a big shout out to those people. Dr. Reynolds, Superintendent, comments.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. It is CTE month. This month and every month, I am so incredibly proud of our career and technical education programs. As you know, Peoria Unified High Schools are home to a multitude of career and technical education programs, and our junior high students get a chance to experience a taste of each of those through their Technology Life Careers or their TLC class. To highlight CTE month, our CTE department, led by Barb Coakley, has planned various ways to highlight their award-winning programs, including showcasing many of them here at the DAC with robotics, culinary treats, and construction competitions. This week we had our robotics competition between Dr. Hernandez and Dr. Davidson as captains of the teams. Is that?
It was the Hernandez Hackers versus the Davidson Destroyers, who won on a technicality. I'll just say that.
All right. So we're so proud of our career and technical education programs and those teachers and students and everyone who supports that work. So thank you to all those. And if you have an opportunity to give a shout out to a CTE teacher or any of those students and ask them about their programming this month, it's just a great way to highlight them. Last week, our academic services team attended and presented the at the ESSA conference hosted by the Arizona Department of Education. During their presentation, the team discussed their work to overcome any interruptions to learning and the application of continuous improvement plans at each school. Not only is Peoria Unified viewed as a leader in the state for this work, but the work done as a result is making a direct impact in every single classroom. A key aspect of our continuous improvement plans is that they are driven by data, collaboration, and the needs of our students. And a huge kudos go out to Dr. Hernandez and her team for their dedication to student success. So thank you for that work. Speaking of state leaders in education, our communications team was recently awarded the top communications award in Arizona, the Copper Medallion, by the Arizona School Public Relations Association. They received the coveted Copper Medallion for their kindergarten enrollment campaign. In addition, they received 8 additional awards for their work over the last year. Ms. Ari, are you wearing the medallion this evening? No. So we just want to say congratulations to you and your team. Please pass along that congratulations. This week as well, the Peoria Mayor and City Council celebrated 23 young artists from across Peoria Unified in kindergarten through 8th grade who participated in the City of Peoria's Young Artists Program. The West Valley Art Museum, located in the Peoria City Hall, selected one student's art to have on continued display near the museum through March 23. Congratulations to Whitney Sharp, a 5th grader at Oakwood Elementary, for being selected for this incredible honor. And finally, I would like to congratulate all of our junior high athletes as they wrap up their winter season. They've shown tremendous skills and growth this year, learned a great deal beyond just athletics in those programs, and I can't wait to see what they're able to accomplish in the future. And that ends my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. All right, moving on to public comment, 5.1. Before we do, if there are any individuals who wish to exit the boardroom at this time, you're more than welcome to do so, but we'd love to have you stay as well. Entirely up to you. Have a great evening. Thank you for time. All right, 5.1, request to address the governing board regarding matters not included on the agenda. Public rules of conduct, the board president shall keep control of the meeting and require the speakers and the audience to refrain from abusive or profane remarks. Disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is inappropriate to utilize a public hearing, public comment segment, or any other agenda items for the purpose of making political speeches. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease such conduct upon request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting room at the direction of the board president. That said, as always, we welcome your voices, and we will spend 30 minutes of public comment, 3 minutes per individual. This first public comment comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Got me batting lead off tonight. Good evening, President Sandoval, Dr. Reynolds, members of the board, auxiliary staff. A few things I want to touch on tonight. First, I want to address some of the comments that were about potential science curriculum that were made at the last board meeting. Science is ever evolving, right? You know, we learn new things every single day when it comes to the world of science. When I was a kid, Pluto was a planet, then it wasn't, then it was again. Now, I'm pretty sure it's a dwarf planet now is how they recognize it, but you know, things are always changing, right? This also includes how we see sex and gender in biology, not just within humans, but other species as well. We should be teaching to those standards, which is the general consensus of the scientific community, not caving to the whims of people that don't understand it. And I'm sorry, but if you can't pronounce some of the text you're complaining about, you should probably hold your judgment. Next, I want to thank Dr. Reynolds for what he sent out today in regards to the executive sessions. I'm not sure if it was an email, if it was just in the application, but I want to reiterate what I spoke about before, is how important executive sessions are in regards to the board's legal action and protection. Again, after recently having to procure legal services for some ridiculous litigation, I have a better respect for attorney-client privilege, and I believe in transparency too, but the district needs good legal support and to protect the privacy of students, and that's not going to happen in an open setting. The other thing I wanted to speak on tonight was pulled from the agenda, but since it's not on the agenda, technically it fits here. A couple weeks ago, I listened to a debate regarding teachers being able to attend a professional development conference, and luckily cooler heads prevailed and it was ultimately approved. Now, one of the people that had an issue with that same conference that teachers wanted to attend wants to attend it herself on a taxpayer's dime. There's no professional reason for a board member to attend this conference. I'm sure that we're going to be told that the reasoning for this is an altruistic one, but the history leads me to believe otherwise. It seems more like a fishing expedition, a chance to find something at the conference to be outraged about for more TV time. Not only is this a misallocation of district funds, it's an insult to the teachers that will be attending this conference. I urge the other members of the board to not allow this request and save us the embarrassment of the inevitable outrage that will come from her after attending. And I hate to disagree with you, Mr. Sandoval, but when it comes to school resource officers, they might be a valuable part of the community, but there's really no information or data that suggests they make schools safer. In fact, I've seen quite the opposite in my own experience, so I appreciate your words, but I have to disagree with you there.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. All right, next public comment comes from Ms. Trina Berg.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, cabinet. My name is Trina Berg. I'm a teacher in the district, and I actually have a couple of things I wanted to speak about. I find it interesting that we've started out some board meetings with scripture. I do believe that there is a time and a place for that, and I appreciate people's ability to have faith in whatever they choose to have faith in, but also understand that there are people who don't believe in the same faith that you do. And so, like if I stood up here and read, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason, that's from the Satanic Temple. One of them is, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Love thy neighbor. Those are from the Bible. Interesting, because we don't always treat other people that way. And of course, when the person who treats others kindly and thinks well of them will find that his intentions will remain true. He will feel at ease. His heart will be sound, and Allah will protect him from evil and calamity. It's from the Quran. So I really hope that we're okay with if we're going to have this, that we're going to allow all of our different beliefs in this district to come into these meetings. I wanted to reiterate this SRO issue. I'm on a campus with an SRO. I taught for a very long time at elementary schools without them. I can tell you that your teachers, your staff, if we had the choice, would always pick counselors, always, and social workers before an SRO. I absolutely love the SRO we have on our campus. I think he is a really good addition to the campus. But we want more support for emotional needs that our students have. I also find it sad that you took a moment where we were celebrating our school counselors and turned it into some political statement about some organization. Like, this was a chance for us to just say, thank our school counselors, and you had to turn it into something that it should not have been. I challenge you to say 5 decent, wonderful, very positive things about this district verbally out loud for everyone to hear every single week. So anyways, I've had that happen to me a lot. All right, the last thing I want to say is actually we're coming up on parent-teacher counselors, we are coming up on parent-teacher conference season. And as, again, a longtime elementary teacher, I know that our elementary teachers are going to be spending very long hours at school over the next couple of weeks. So I just want to give a shout out to them because they spend a very long time with our parents and our families inviting people in. And if you want to know what's happening in your classrooms, this is a really great opportunity to do that. Go into your go into your conference, see what your kids are working on, see what they're learning. Make sure you're attending those curriculum nights. Make sure you're attending Meet the Teacher. As a high school teacher, sometimes I'm sad how few of my parents show up for Meet the Teacher night. where they have a chance to see what all of our classroom, like what our units are about, what we're learning about in school. So please make the effort to go in, meet with your teachers, see what your kids are working on. That is a great way to build our relationships and build these bridges between students and parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Berg. Next public comment comes from Mr. Kyle Frey.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak in front of you all today. Welcome to everyone. And I didn't prepare a full-on speech. I just wanted to be able to at least come up and speak my heart a little bit. My wife has come here before to speak. My daughter has come here before to speak. And I wanted to be involved in this too, because over the past few years, we've been coming and watching, and we're concerned about our kids, right? And I think that's why most of these people attend. At least that's why I interpret it to be. I'm not running for anything. I don't have any packets to share. I don't have any bigger drama to share than that. I want to say that I'm a parent here. I've got 3 kids in the system. I'm very proud of them. I've got one at Ira Murphy still. The other 2 went to Ira Murphy and are now at Centennial. And one of them is about to graduate and head to ASU next year in the computer systems engineering. And I'm very proud of him. Some things about scriptures and things about quotes, and I'm going to share a quote too. So, and this one's from Melville, I think. It's ignorance is the parent of fear. And I've seen a lot of that. I think ever since the pandemic, what we collectively had to go through to survive that, to get through it, to manage it, it was a lot. And I think we're seeing the repercussions of that. That's what I've seen over the past few months of attending these in person, not just in the months before watching it on live TV or live on YouTube. Just seeing the results of that. And I think I've seen a lot in terms of just the way people have reacted to that. And I hope that over time that can be alleviated and that we can be kinder to each other. But I also want to address some of the things I've heard in regards to bathrooms, and I know that's coming up. But I think there's not necessarily a good answer for every parent. I know what I believe. I know that the bathroom issue hasn't bothered me like it has bothered some other parents. I feel as though students who identify as trans, they should feel comfortable to use the bathroom that they identify with. That's just my personal opinion. I know not every parent who comes here and shares that, or every person who comes, whether they have a kid here or not, shares that. I know that part makes them uncomfortable. But I would hope that as we evolve, as we grow, as students evolve and we support them, that we will continue to support them. And if we need to revisit some of the policies to help address that, that's great, and we should do that in a civil way. And I invite any parent who's passionate about this to come to me and have a civil dialogue about it. But I really hope we continue to support parents, to support the students, and really create an arena and an atmosphere where they feel protected and safe, whatever side of this you're on. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frey. Next public comment comes from Ms. Laura Tepison.
Good evening, President Sandoval, board members, Dr. Reynolds, and guests. At the Future Freshman Night at Sunrise High School, there was a bulletin board made by students stating, "Be a uniter, not a divider." While many adult leaders in this country are incapable to lead and find solutions, and many community members are doing nothing to contribute in a positive way. At the last board meeting, when votes were casted regarding that conference, behind me, a retired teacher showed us a yes of joy following the, in my opinion, sometimes the political vote. This is not a competition or political game. Rather than getting involved in a productive, effective, and intelligent way, some people come here, bring no logic, and stir things up in ignorance. I bring facts. Section K and all of PUSD documents, District wants to, quote, involve citizens in the work of the district and the solving of its educational problems, including the strategic planning, end of quote. I assume we all read and understood the strategic reset plan. Research revealed that on average, 95% of an organization's employees don't understand its strategy, and I am unsure if the board really dedicated enough time to read it well prior to casting votes for various reasons. Prior to designing a strategic plan, a needs assessment must be performed. They go hand in hand. Needs assessment findings guide the strategic planning process and helps educators identify, understand, and prioritize the needs that districts and schools must address. What are the needs of PUSD, as they must have been identified and prioritized in the needs assessment? At the last board meeting, one parent put district on the spot about an article on PUSD failure to address bullying behavior. One teacher spoke about divisiveness and sex and vaping in high school bathrooms. If strengthening anti-bullying behaviors in schools and drug prevention, etc., are among needs and priorities, then it only makes sense to select appropriate professional development training and conferences for staff, doesn't it? On another note, please dismiss and replace your bank of legal counsel. The level of incompetency contributing to resolving issues effectively and efficiently is disturbing. Dr. Reynolds and his cabinet are well equipped and aware of current laws, or blocked laws for that matter, to make decisions for this district. PUSD has 38,329 students and 38,327 students and their families are waiting for you to wrap up these extremely ridiculous bathrooms issues and attend to their needs. All other districts have a plan, I checked.
Ms. Tepasano, I appreciate your
you.
time. Thank you. All right, next public comment comes from Ms. Amy Sousa. And Sean, okay. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, President. Thank you, Superintendent Reynolds and Board. As he said, I'm Sean Souza. I'm a resident of Peoria and a proud parent of a 15-year-old girl in this district here tonight, and I'm to talk about discrimination. Merriam-Webster defines discrimination as a prejudicial outlook, action, or treatment. Prejudice is in there. What's Merriam-Webster say about prejudice? An injury, damage resulting from judgment or action of another disregard of one's rights. Disregard of one's rights. You cannot take away the rights of one to appease another, which is exactly what we are doing to all the girls in this district. Teenage years for all sexes can be a very trying period. Hormones are raging, bodies are changing, and it can be a very, very anxious time. I know firsthand of several female students in this district who are developing diagnosed anxiety about using female restrooms and locker rooms for fear of what they might encounter. They're physically holding their urine for the entire school days to avoid running into a biological male in their female restrooms. And to address a public comment made at a previous board meeting where a gentleman said, and I quote, had yet to see evidence of a cisgendered person being attacked in a restroom by a trans student in this district. So that's the argument? That we haven't seen it yet? This approach is extremely irresponsible. Young teen girls should be able to go to a restroom and relieve themselves or change their feminine products or go into a locker room and completely change out their clothes without anxiety. You, as our school board, are facilitating the discrimination of every single biological female in this district in order to appease a small minority of transgendered students, and it needs to stop. I support everyone's right to identify as the gender of their choice, and I believe we should support these students by giving them their own spaces to use a restroom or change out for sports. Being inclusive isn't everyone in the same space. To me, it means there is a space for everyone. You can't infringe upon the rights of one group to appease another, especially when you're talking about intimate spaces for teenagers. This seems like it should be common sense, but yet we are here still arguing about rights. My daughter has rights too. I'll keep fighting to keep her physical and mental health protected, and I urge all parents, especially dads of females in this district, to contact this board, or better yet,
Thank you, Mr. Souza. Appreciate your time, sir. Thank you. Next public comment comes from Ms. Christina Rogers.
Good evening. I have a few things I also want to talk on to something that was pulled as well, but I'm going to start with the SROs who work closely with the school administrator to implement security measures to keep our children safe. I would think this is something we can all agree on is needed not only for the safety of our kids, it also takes the burden off of teachers and administrators who are not qualified to handle these situations. So I think SROs are very important, and to know that there is a grant out there that they can apply for, and schools are in much need of these, that it would be to the boards to be able to present this to them and show them how easy it is to get it so we can move forward with keeping our kids safe. Especially because we have these guys here who are protecting all of us crazy moms and dads. So I think it would warrant the same safety for our children at school. The second thing I'd like to talk on, I think everybody's kind of talking on it, is the transgender bathroom situation. I think it's important to notice that here and the state capitol, because I've been going to the state capitol as well, that a bunch of transgender men and men are speaking to keep boys in the girls' bathroom. That's very concerning. Actually, very concerning. I also want to point out, I love how the men say they feel, or these people feel like they're women therefore are women. I can 100% guarantee that they do not feel like a woman. They have no idea what a woman feels like. By wearing makeup, dresses, nails, that has nothing to do with being a real woman. I also want you to know that where does this stop? If we allow men to feel like women and women to feel like men and for them to use our bathrooms, when do we stop? When do we have kids who are acting like dogs, cats, and horses? Do they get litter boxes and dog playpens and horse corrals? Like at some place, we as adults need to be working together to make sure that our children are safe and that school is for learning, period. I really encourage the board to please look at this situation for the transgender bathroom, or for our bathrooms to keep our girls safe sooner than later. The other thing is the travel request. It is important for our board, before making a decision, to know what our teachers and administrators are going to. So before we cast a vote, I feel like that information should be presented. You guys look at it and then make a decision. Not just make a decision and hope that it turns out okay. The other thing is a suggestion to the board is, if they are being set out of state and there are all these sessions that they can go to, why don't these administrators, teachers have to present? These are the sessions that I'd like to go to. You guys research them and you then approve them from there. Because we know not everything is taught, or everything that they go to, they can be taught. So why not approve a sessions that they are going to? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Next public comment comes
President
from
Sandoval, if I may, travel request is an agenda item.
Oh,
So we just want to be,
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that. No, it's still on there. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Next public comment comes from Ms. Becky Smith.
Hello. Kind of speaking on all the same things, but I did want to commend the fact that a board member wants to take her time to attend a training session that the board approved without knowing much about what will be taught. I feel it's important not only for our board to be informed.
I apologize. I mean, public comment is for line items that are not on the agenda.
Okay. I thought it was pulled as well, but I think it's somebody, the board should be educated on that. But okay, so on a separate note, if anybody here has issues with grant money that can be spent to go towards SROs at schools, I don't understand why they're in the room with 2 police officers protecting them, but they don't feel our kids deserve the same. I know it's been reiterated, but we have people in here who just said SROs maybe make schools less safe, which is kind of offensive. I'm a former police family myself, and that same person has police walk them out to their car. So that's kind of weird. And then commenting that mispronouncing words for people who come up here and it's hard to publicly speak sounds like bullying to me. I would never attack somebody that doesn't know how to pronounce words and they're put on the spot. It's very intimidating coming up here, but that sounds like a bullying thing to me. I think SROs, I've seen tons of videos online of SROs dancing with kids at high schools. They provide, maybe a connection to kids right now who may view policing or police in a negative light. It might change those relationships, and you might actually help youth who are at risk turn around if they're on the wrong path. I can tell you my son attends Liberty High School, and he just told me yesterday he intentionally will not use the restroom in passing periods, which is between classes, because there's so much drug use and vaping, and he says when you go in the restroom, they pressure you to do it, and he does not want to be pressured into doing that. He also got pressured at the mall to do it by some random kid that approaches him. He's like, why are random kids approaching me asking me to smoke their vapes? So he says he intentionally does not go during passing periods. He waits to go to class and then asks the teacher to please go to the bathroom so that it's not a ton of kids in there. And he's like, my teachers get frustrated with me. They get mad at me. And I said, well, you need to let them know why you're doing that. You're doing that to protect yourself because you don't want to have the peer pressure. You don't want the drug use around you. So there seems to be problems in that area where our kids don't feel safe for other reasons in the restroom too. So.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So this next public comment has two names listed. We can have one individual speak. It's Matthew and Emily George.
My daughter would like a minute to speak, and sure, she can take them remaining a minute of mine. I think that would be adequate.
We would need separate green slips, sir.
I'll go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Board members, Superintendent Reynolds, it's nice of you to acknowledge me. You don't acknowledge me through emails. I'm here to talk about the district, how they ignore complaints, and they fail to respond. Let's just cite an example. 2019 of May, Rick Ordway. The district failed to respond to numerous complaints until Mr. Ordway was arrested. 5 counts of child molestation and 1 count of sexual abuse. The district faced a $25 million lawsuit for this. October 7th, 2022, teachers and administrators were aware of widespread harassment. The district permitted students of color to be harassed. The district failed to act or respond appropriately. November 2022, I made numerous complaints to the district. They failed to respond to emails or calls. January 9th, 2023, my daughter received a text message from her teacher that said, "Glad you got what you wanted, but you didn't come in me, did you? I'm not on birth control and don't need that."
Mr. George.
I requested the district
Mr. George.
help provide counseling for my daughter for what the staff member did.
Mr. George. Mark this time real quick, so I'm going to make sure he gets his seconds back. Thank you. We want to hear your voice without question, but please refrain from any profane words, profanity.
Well, I'm just repeating the words that your teacher
understand,
sent
sir.
to my daughter, sir, with all due respect.
understand.
How else am I supposed to make the message heard?
Just please refrain from any profanity in your speech, please. Thank you.
I requested the district to help provide counseling for my daughter for what their staff member did. Dale Sheff told me he would call me back. A week passed by, the man never called me. He still to this day has not returned my emails or phone calls. I sent an email to all board members and administrators, and only one person responded to me. The district has a common theme here. Leadership consistently fails to lead and respond to situations in the district. They seem to think that ignoring them will make them go away. The only board member that's responded to me is Heather Rooks. The rest of the board members and administrators have failed. And what my daughter would like to say is, I would like to thank Ms. Rooks for your effort in helping me get back to school. Dr. Reynolds and President Sandoval, I am asking you to resign your position because your leadership has shown consistent failure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Next public comment comes from Ms. Nikki Enchef.
Good evening, and thank you. I don't want men in women's restrooms or locker rooms, not out of hatred or ignorance or transphobia. Men have their own sex-specific facilities, and women have ours. It is that simple. And whether it suits your agenda or not, women have a reason to fear changing that. It is clearly documented that 1 in 4 women are sexually assaulted by age 18, that 90% of perpetrators are male, that 76% of assailants are known to the victim, and the majority of these incidents occur at school, 44%. And where might attacks at school take place? In secluded, unmonitored bathrooms. None of this implies that all men who want to use women bathrooms would want to harm women, but opening access to some men provides easy access to predatory males. This isn't a misinformation hatred campaign from hysterical, ignorant women. These are facts. And that fear makes me, let's see, a bigot, anti or ignorant of LGBTQ, attacking children, transphobic. I'm sure someone in this room will let us know if I left out any trigger words from the narrative. I asked Principal and Dr. Davidson if they would want women in the men's restroom or locker rooms alongside them. Dr. Davidson laughed. Yes, he laughed and said no. I get that. I don't need an explanation. I agree. Even though I have never heard of a woman attacking a man in the men's restroom or locker room in this district, I've never heard of that happening anywhere, I still agree. Dr. Davidson, who would have no obvious reason to fear it would lead to being attacked by a woman, still doesn't want women in his locker room or restrooms. The Chief of Student Services, who implements a practice that demands our minor students share bathrooms with opposite-sex students, would not want to share his adult bathrooms with women. Does that make Dr. Davidson a bigot? Will internet trolls and some people in this room call Dr. Davidson transphobic? Will they accuse him of spreading propaganda using anti-LGBT rhetoric from the 90s or ignorance? Or is it just okay for adult men to intimidate and attack women who agree with Dr. Davidson here and online? Are you starting to see where our fear is coming from? No one in this room wants any students to come to any harm. All reasons and forms of bullying are condemned and should be promptly handled according to district policy. This is about the district implementing a secret practice that focuses on 0.00112% of students with no regard to the impact on the other 99.99%. To disregard 99.99% of students is about as far from diversity, equity, and inclusion as you can go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchev. We have time for one final public comment, and that is coming from Ms. Wendy Van Wee.
Hello, everyone. How are you? I would like to start off by reading Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I would like to first speak to the board. There's Melissa, congratulations. Heather, congratulations. I'm so glad to hear that you have been out in the community and you've been out at the different schools and you've been touring them. And Heather as well. So I appreciate that, Melissa. Part of my comments were going to be towards the fact that Heather has been boots on the ground, getting out to schools, finding out what's happening, what their concerns are, what they're proud of, what they're not proud of, etc. So Melissa, I appreciate that you're out there as well. So with that said, everybody keeps talking about the SRO officers. I think that's pretty much, I'm not going to talk too much about it. I support it. If we have money, why not spend it on that? We always talk about every time the budget comes up, there's buckets of money. I've heard this so much in the school district. I've been in this district for years. There's buckets of money for certain things. Well, if there's a bucket of money that can pay for an SRO and we need SROs to protect our children, then why not do it? Period. End of discussion. What I wanted to talk on too is that we keep getting emails. I don't know if it's daily. My kid doesn't ride the bus anymore, so it doesn't affect us as much as it does affect a ton of PUSD parents. But there are bus routes that keep getting canceled because we're shorthanded. And it was found out that there were tons of applications submitted to hire bus drivers. But those bus drivers went someplace else because the application process with our PUSD HR department was taking anywhere from 9 to 12 weeks. Well, I don't know about you, if you're desperate for a job, you can't wait 9 to 12 weeks. If you find something else, you're gonna go work there. So we need to do better in the PUSD district. HR department. And if we need bus drivers and there's people out there that are willing to work and drive our children, then why aren't we hiring these people? And why aren't we doing it quicker? I get you got to go through background checks. I get all of that stuff, but it should not take 3 months to get hired for a job. Let me see. I just want to make sure. I know that there's a lot of people that are upset about the curriculum, findings of the books and everything like that. But those are the things that we as a community, that's what we elected you to do. That is what we want you to do as board members, is to get out there, find out what our children are being subjected to, find out what our children are learning, and bring it back to us. We work 40 hours a week. We have, whatever it is, we have busy lives, and we cannot always be involved. That's what these meetings are for. If you find something and you're concerned, bring it to the community and talk to us about it. I just want to make sure. I'm more of an improv person. I don't like to read. I think that's it. Like, I really do want to commend Heather and Melissa for getting out there in the community. I hope that the rest of you, Mr. Sandoval, I know you've done more. You've done it as well. But I hope the rest of you get out there and really just find out what's happening in the community and the districts and get us back to wanting to be the top-notch district that we are.
Thank you, Ms. Van Lee. All right, that does conclude public comment. However,
President Sandoval, I wanted to address with what was said about me during the public comment.
yeah, I was just going to make a statement that anytime public comment takes place and one of us is mentioned or called out, we do have the opportunity to respond. So I was called out, so I definitely want to respond as well. But Ms. Rooks.
Oh, thank you for letting me know.
Yep.
First of all, with speaking scriptures, in America, we have the First Amendment right. So that is my right to do. When we talk about positive, that I'm not always positive, you don't see the behind the scenes, where I'm dropping off flowers to our principal at Visanti Elementary because of what she's dealing with right now with the drugs on the campus. I do say positive things. I mentioned Frontier Elementary. I love that there is a reading interventionist at that school that I grew up at. When we talk about Liberty, the PBSN classroom and the teacher, Mr. Byrne, does amazing work with those kids. I do mention positive comments, but I also recognize that we have problems in this district and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Yeah, so, I was called out during public comment, and one of the things I definitely want to make sure that I'm clear on is, regarding our SROs, my public comment isn't in and around stating that we have a need for more. It's, for me, I've always stated every district has a story. And I think our story as it relates to our current SRO protocol is one that I think can be mirrored. Just again, they take a non-punitive approach to what they do on our campuses. So again, my statement wasn't the need for more. My statement is more in and around that our SROs, I appreciate the fact that they do take a listen first and relationship first approach to, yes, safety, but also they do have an impact on our students and their success here in Peoria Unified. So not all districts are like that, but based on, I'm in my 7th year and I've had good contacts with all of them here at our high schools. So, but again, not a suggestion that we need more. So that's it. Again, thank you everybody for your voices. I appreciate it. We are going to move on to Section 7.1, the item that was pulled from the consent agenda, travel requests. So as always, we will hear from the public. We do have some public comment tied to this line item. So we'll hear from our public comments. We'll get into board comments, questions, and then we'll go to a vote. So that said, first public comment tied to this line item is Ms. Christina Rogers. Did you? Yeah. No, that was my bad. Thank you. No worries. All right. Ms. Laura Tepison.
Thank you for the second opportunity. I will not be using this. It sounds like I'm fighting with someone always. My accent and the microphone do not go well together. Yes, but it's no. I would like to touch upon travel, conferences, and social workers, and the district, and why I'm here. I'm not here to give directions. I'm respectful, and I'm not telling what to do. You know very well, I hope, what you need to do. And the district mission, I read, prioritizing relationships, focusing on the safety and social and emotional well-being of students and staff, and fostering a culture of active community engagement. Teachers deal with CEL daily. I'm not asking to erase it. The clean CEL in action can include assigning a group project where students self-delegate roles to work together for the good of the group. CEL is used for behavior management or other challenges, school-wide prevention services specific to each school's identified needs, including bullying prevention, character education, and drug alcohol education. And the PUSD social-emotional learning, I read, parents every day and community partners every day are committed to assisting the district, end of quotes, end of quotes. This one is even stronger. District has volunteered parents and community in their plan to be committed. That's why we are here. At least I'm here to bring facts, not to attack. Okay, let me say, sorry. Bullying prevention and identification is a mandated issue, and your social workers are key members of the bully prevention program. As I stated previously, since strengthening anti-bullying is a need in this district, it only makes sense to send the social workers to conferences that address the identified needs in your needs assessment that guided the strategic reset plan. What about the prevention programs on the CEL and conferences with workshops that call for character education, anti-bullying, drug and alcohol prevention? Why would social workers be sent to attend a conference with workshops on decolonizing K-12 education and to teach, assess from an anti-racist and anti-oppressive social work frame? Are they racist? Is there a line item in the needs assessment that social workers in PUSD are racist, and so they are sent to be trained on how not to be? Why send social workers to attend the conference with most of workshops irrelevant to PUSD needs? While one community member questions the conference with topics about everything else but the needs of this district, some others counterattack illogically with no facts. To me, it seems again for political reasons. And to add to the disconnect, lack of comprehension of issues or strategic plan, and poor communication among all parties, one board member at the last board meeting responded to all this that the board supervises the superintendent.
Ms. Stepasan, thank you for your
Such
time. I
disconnect.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next public comment tied to this line item is coming from Ms. Trina Berg.
Good evening, good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the board. I think once again we need to recognize the fact that when we send any of our staff members or anyone in this district to any conference, there's always going to be sessions that are not relevant to what we do, because these conferences they're not PUSD specific. They're international specific, sometimes just US specific, whatever it is, but there's always going to be sessions that are not relevant to what we are sending our people to. I appreciate when people want to go and learn and see what it is that we do in conferences and what it is that we're learning. But in the sake of transparency, I know some of the questions that were asked last time when staff was going is like, what conferences are we going to? Because we know that there's always going to be sessions that are not relevant to what we're doing. So I guess the same question in the face of transparency is, are you only attending sessions, or are you only wanting to attend sessions that our staff are going to be attending? Because if you choose to veer off of that, then you are no longer learning what we're learning. In the sake of transparency, are you going to come back and just talk about the sessions that you went to? Because again, I know that there are sessions in that conference that we would not be attending, because you made it very clear that that would be illegal for us to attend. So then also, if you attended, it would be very illegal for you to attend. So again, in the sake of transparency, are you only going to stick with what staff is doing? Are you going to hold yourself to the same ethical standards? Because if you're going to tell us as staff that we can only attend ones that we say we're going to attend and that won't violate or maybe push into a law or whatever, then that also needs to happen. And there can't be any of this, well, I just popped in and grabbed literature and then now we're posting pictures of what I saw and whatever. In the sake of transparency, there's all kinds of things out there on social media, and I know some of us can't see it because we've been blocked, even though like it literally says you are the school board clerk on the social media pages. So in the sake of transparency and ethical behavior, are we only going to attend things that you say that you're going to attend? And are you going to learn? Are you going to actually become, like, are you going to figure this out and learn? Are you going with an open mind that we're not actually like learning all these bad things that you think that we're doing? So I guess that's my concern. And if the answer to all those questions is yes, then okay, I know that our district, like we budget money for board travel. That's just part of our built-in budget. Now that AEL, we know that that's not an issue. You know, some of these other things have been lifted, cool. But I would like that answer, because in the sake of transparency, you were asking staff that question, so I think the same question should be sent back to you. If the answers are yes, and you choose to attend, great. But please go with an open mind and see what we're actually learning, because I'm hoping that some of the fears that you have of what's actually happening in schools and what we're actually doing, you're gonna find that we're not actually doing them. If you go with an open mind, because if you're going to find something that you don't like, you will always find something you don't like. I find something I don't like every single day. But that doesn't ruin everything around me because of that one thing that I found. So I'm just asking that you hold yourself to the same standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burke. Next public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Yeah, I also want to apologize. I kind of jumped the gun earlier with my public comments. I didn't realize we'd be able to speak on this one. Just kind of want to reiterate some of the same things that I said earlier, is that my concern is that there really isn't a professional reason for a board member to attend this type of conference. And I have my own personal history with Ms. Rooks, and because of that, I don't really see this as an altruistic visit. I hope it is, you know. I would hope that you would want to go there to educate yourself on what the teachers are doing to better themselves so that you can bring that back to the district. But to be honest, from what I've seen, it just looks like it's more going to turn into a political stunt, and the district shouldn't be paying for someone to travel for a political stunt. And yeah, that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Next public comment comes from Ms. Jeannie Castine. Again, tied to this line item.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. My name is Jeannie Castine. I'm 50, so I need glasses. And I am a lifelong educator and former school board member and president in the Creighton School District, where I served from 2012 to 2020. I am currently the executive director for a local nonprofit focused on protecting the Constitution and the separation of church and state. We've recently joined a coalition of other advocacy groups who are concerned about our public schools and who want to support school board members so they can best serve the students, families, faculty, and staff in their district. At the last meeting, there was a discussion about a professional development opportunity for school counselors and social workers, and an attempt to keep those education professionals from an opportunity to better serve their students. So consent agenda item 6.3, number 4, raised some red flags for me. Concerned parents and community members from PUSD reached out to inform our coalition of this agenda item and travel request from Board Clerk Rooks to attend a curriculum conference designed specifically for teachers and not really meant for school board members. While I appreciate the board's desire to learn more about implementing district-wide social-emotional learning, cultural competency, implicit bias, and how to best advocate for marginalized families, just some of the workshops that are being offered in this conference, this is really a matter of knowing your role as a board member and finding the right professional development to better serve the entire district. Board members ask the what, the why, the how much, and administration and staff should focus on the who, the how, and the when. Essentially, board members focus on policy and staff focuses on operations and implementation. Again, I appreciate Board Clerk Rook's newfound passion to learn more about things she has a history of speaking out against or blocking professional educators in this district from benefiting from. I'm so glad, Board Member Rooks, that you have had a change of heart regarding this type of vital programming. But since the ASCD conference offers technical content designed for teachers in the classroom and instructional coaches. A better option would be a conference designed specifically for board members. AS
Miss- Yeah, my name was mentioned earlier, but we're going to, as board members, we're going to have the opportunity to respond.
Because the agenda item,
It's-
President Sandoval, members of the board, because the agenda item specifically lists that board member, if it were for the entire board, I would address the entire board. So that's why I'm differentiating. Is it okay for me to go on?
Yes.
ASBA, NSBA, and NALEO offer great programming designed specifically for board members so they can better support their most vulnerable students and families, as well as their faculty and staff. In my personal experience, I learned so much from many school board conferences I attended and was able to bring back great ideas. I encourage you to do that. They offer great programming as well on boardsmanship, and their years of advocacy and
Castine.
professional development may help you all figure out how you don't need
Ms.
cops
Castine,
at
thank
the
you.
board meetings anymore. Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you. All right, we have one final public comment tied to this line item, then we'll get into board member comments and questions. The final comment tied to this line item is coming from Ms. Nikki Encheff. She's already spoken to this line item, so unfortunately we can't. No, ma'am.
Hello. I just wanted to comment on one of the travel requests that was submitted for last week. Just overall, while it's good for professional development for staff, there were a lot of concerns about the sessions and the organization itself that was holding the conference. Over 30% of the sessions mentioned racism, CRT, anti-racism, decolonization. So there was an overall theme to the sessions. While they might not have chosen those specific ones, if you looked further into the organization, they have a statement of solidarity with Black Lives Matter. They support legislation for CRT specifically to be taught in schools. They recommend books that are anti-police. So the other words that were in these sessions were white supremacy and white Christian nationalists. So as I'm looking around a room of mostly white people and cops, do you really want to send people to workshops where the organization overall is anti-cop and anti-white people? Wasn't an attempt to get staff to not go to professional developments. It was just a concern about what types of organizations we want our staff associated with in their overall vision and mission, and if it matches with Peoria Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Encheff. All right, that concludes all public comment tied to this line item. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
Well, so for me, answering some of the questions here of why I want to go specifically is because a lot of things. Before when this was approved, I had questions. I had concerns. I wanted to know what was going to be taught to our staff at this conference, because when we're board members, we're elected up here, and we're making decisions on behalf of the district, the students, the parents, the community, the staff, we should know what our staff is learning. How are we supposed to make decisions and vote on them as board members if we don't know what's going on? So for me, I wanted to provide transparency to the community. And yes, I do share things because that's in our strategic plan, being transparent with the community. That is the whole reason why I ran, is being transparent. And yes, there are actually classes that I want to, that there's workshops that I want to see. There's a workshop on special education and IEP, which I have a passion for. There is board members have traveled in the past to different conferences, not just ASBA or NSBA. How are we supposed to know what is going on in our district? How are we supposed to trust? Our community has lost trust. I'm here to gain it back. And I want to thank President Sandoval, because I called him yesterday and I talked to him and I said, I really want to go so that I can hear what our staff members are learning. And yes, I am going to share it with the community, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to share it with the parents, with the community, the taxpayers, That is our job. That is what we're supposed to do as board members, is providing transparency to the people who elected us. And I want to thank President Sandoval for that conversation. I appreciate, you've gone to conferences and you wanted to, you wanted that opportunity for new board members, Melissa and myself. So I appreciate the conversation that we had. And I'm passionate and I want to know what is going on. And so that's where a lot of my concerns go and what I want to go to this conference for.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing, questions, comments?
One of the reasons why I had this pulled was to get clarification on the number 4 on that sheet. I didn't have any questions about any of the other staff travel. And my question and the clarification was because, and there's a few, with some of the folks who've spoken, there's a little bit of confusion. Initially, that first meeting, there was discussion about a travel item to a school social work thing. This last session and then this session, the conference is for Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development Annual Conference. So I know, Ms. Rooks, last time you had questions, concerns about the content of it. You didn't feel like the folks should go. You voted no against it. And so when I saw this on here, I was very confused. And I was like, well, I didn't think that she thought that our staff should be going. And now we're seeing her name on there. So I wanted clarification. And again, I know all of our staff, they have to fill out the forms. They have to give justification why they are going. A lot of times they can't put in the exact sessions they're going to because the conference themselves have not published that yet. So, and we just have to get folks registered so that we know that they can go. But again, I've asked that this be pulled so that there could be some clarification of purpose of traveling, because it is meant for professional educators. It is, we have to be stewards of our resources and just really want to make sure that any information gained is going to be going towards the role of being a board member and not for, as some concerns were raised with employees, that there was going to be kind of a watchdog role there. But instead, really making sure that this was going to be for board purposes. So that's, I would like to get some clarification.
Well, for more clarification than what I just talked about, the social worker conference that we recently had on the agenda at our board meeting was all the workshops had a lot of questionable topics being discussed, and we have Arizona state statute, so I don't see what's wrong with a board member asking questions and clarification on where we're sending our staff, especially if it's going to violate Arizona state law. The ASCD conference, when it was on the agenda, I asked for more information. I wanted to know why we wanted to send our staff there. What are the reasons? Is there problems going on? What are we going to be bringing back? What are they going to be learning at these workshops? And I don't see what's wrong with asking those questions. So because I couldn't really get those answers and everybody's questioning why I want to go see for myself. I research things. I have good work ethic. I make sure I look into everything, and I have to be able to see it for myself. So for me, I want to see what our teachers are learning here. I don't see what's wrong with that. As a board member, when we're making decisions, this is the supervision and curriculum development, I want to see, they're having discussions. The conference workshop sessions were recently posted. And so for me, it's those workshops have discussions and sessions on things going on in school districts Why would we not want a board member to attend so that they can get a better understanding of what's going on? And I have seen the travel requests for the past 3 to 4 years from previous board members going to conferences. And I don't have them with me, but like I said, I do my research. I will go back and look through the history of the board agendas, and I will look and see which board members have attended which conferences. But again, I want to be able to know and learn, but also there are community members and parents that need trust brought back. They need to be able to trust that we're making the right decisions, and also our staff. I'm not saying everybody's doing it, but I am saying there are questionable things going on right now, and it needs to be questioned, and we need to hold accountability. And I want to be able to see it for myself and hear it. And so that's why I want to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Ewing, anything else?
No, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for answering those questions.
Again, thank you, everyone who spoke on behalf of this line item. Mrs. Rooks, Mrs. Ewing, your comments as well. I've been very consistent with regard to professional organizations that provide our teacher staff and board members the opportunities to build on their acumen, to be better, and to be more really effective, as leaders from a board member perspective. We heard about the law. Yeah, the law applies to everybody, including board members. And one thing I do want to comment on, as we attend these types of professional development opportunities, it is very important, that as we enter those rooms and attend these conferences, that we do so with an open mind, staying curious without judgment, and really going in, with a clear understanding of what our purpose is and why we're there, right? That is important to me because, trust is a two-way street. So that said, it is important, from a growth perspective, for all of us to have these opportunities to continue to grow and build on our acumen. I am in support of, the individuals who have requested to attend this conference. But, my only ask is, and it's in policy, as these individuals come back, that they come back with the information, that they come back with the materials that were presented, and some of the learnings that did take place. So, like I said, trust is a two-way street. I'm open to this opportunity. Me as a board member, the conferences that I have attended, those are ones that are specific to my boardmanship and how I can be a better leader, whether it's leadership, specific to board members or leadership in general. Those have been important to me to be a more effective leader. So that said, I don't know that I've attended a conference that's, specific to teachers or social workers or counselors. But it doesn't mean that it's not an opportunity to grow and be a better board member. So it is about growth. It is about development and being better as board members. But in the same breath, trust was brought up a few times. Ms. Rooks, you brought it up. Ms. Rooks, sorry, you brought it up. And it is a two-way street. And looking forward to all the individuals who are traveling, that they bring back that G2, that knowledge, and those resources that were had at the conference. So that said, if no further questions or comments, I do need a motion to approve 7.1 travel requests / staff.
I motion we approve 7.1 travel staff.
I'll second that. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes, 3 yeas, 2 absent. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to our action items this evening. 8.1, presentation of the Peoria Unified School District's annual financial audit reports. Ms. Myers, welcome.
Well, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and community. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview of our fiscal year 2022 financial audit, single audit, and USFR compliance questionnaire for the Peoria Unified School District. This evening, I am joined by Mr. Dennis Maskey, CPA, partner with CWDL Certified Public Accountants, the district's audit firm. Mr. Maskey will provide an overview of the issued audit reports as well as the fiscal year 2022 USFR compliance questionnaire findings. Later in the presentation, I will provide additional comments on the annual comprehensive financial report and the district's approach to address the findings that we'll cover. At the end of the presentation, we will both be able to answer your questions. And with that, I will now ask Mr. Maskey to begin his part of the presentation. Thank you.
All right, good evening, President Sandoval, school board members, Dr. Reynolds. Again, my name is Dennis Maskey with the firm CWDL. This is our first year with Peoria Unified School District, so we're really excited to work with the district, and thank you for working with us. I've previously been at the district for audits at other audit firms, but this is the first year my firm has performed the audit. So when we talk about the audit, we come out in 1 or 2 visits and we issue reports, but really I like to think of the audit, we really do 3 different audits in one. The first audit is the financial statement audit, where we look at your balance sheet, your revenues and expenditures, that type of thing through the annual comprehensive financial report. We have the single audit report, which is where we look at your federal expenditures. And then there's the state's USFR, Uniform System of Financial Records, which is about a 30 to 40 page questionnaire, anything from attendance to procurement to travel, all those different types of things, we have to go through a checklist. And then the top item here is the governance communication. This is a letter that we provide to the governing board that just gives you the highlights or the certain things that have changed during the current year. So to give you some perspective of the audit process, this is a year-long process. It started with an engagement letter and a preliminary discussion with management so we can identify our risks where we need to test and specific things that might happen during the year if bonds are issued or whatnot. We do 2 weeks of preliminary work where we're really looking at your federal compliance as well as some of those state USFR compliance areas. We come back then for a week of field work and then ultimately finalize the audit reports by a December 31st deadline, and now we're doing the board presentation. Again, like I said, the governance communication kind of goes through some of the highlights or things that we need to communicate with governance, as well as any difficulties encountered, corrected or uncorrected misstatements, disagreements, and we had none of those things during the audit process. There was one new implementation of accounting standards called leases, where you recognize a lease receivable and a deferred inflow for those leases that you're renting out or leasing out to other organizations or entities, and that's specifically more so for your cell tower leases or solar leases. For the annual comprehensive financial report, we issued an unmodified or clean opinion. It's the highest opinion that can be awarded. And we do look at internal controls, but we do not provide an opinion on internal controls. We disclaim on some of the supplementary information. We don't audit all of that data because there's historical data, 10 years of information, and we really just audit the year under audit. And that's going to be all the information in the back of your annual comprehensive financial report. For the single audit, this is our federal program testing. We tested 3 grants during the current year. One is your education stabilization funds. Those are all of the COVID-19 funding. One is the emergency connectivity fund. That's funding that was received to purchase technology equipment. and then the other was the special education cluster. And we found no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, so no findings during our test work. Just to kind of give some highlights of that report, the district has had for fiscal year 22 around $65 million of federal expenditures. We test almost 30% of that. And what I mean by test is we don't look at every single transaction. We use sampling techniques, but we probably tested in total over 200 transactions, whether it be through payroll transactions or accounts payable transactions. And we did not see any findings related to that activity. Then the last report is the compliance questionnaire. Again, anywhere between 30 and 40 pages of questions, yes or no questions. And we had 4 different areas or 4 different exceptions this year. In comparison to the previous year, there was 3, so very similar, and that's a good number. When you're looking at over 100 and some questions, there's going to be things that come up. So, you know, we look at this as being very positive. In the number of exceptions that we find. So just to go over them briefly, for 3 out of the 25 employees we selected, an I-9 form wasn't maintained. For quotes, anything over $100,000 of expenditures needs to go through a formal RFP or IFB process. And there was one expenditure that was just above that and didn't have that formal process done. And then in student attendance reporting, 3 of 20 elementary and junior high school students tested. We look at partial day absences, so when they sign in or sign out of the district, that gets recorded as a partial day, half day, 0.5 or 0.75. It was off by what the state requires as the calculation. And then for one of the 25 withdrawals that we tested, that information needs to be entered into a computerized system within 5 working days. And it did not meet that standard. So overall, these are some of the smaller type of findings that we see, nothing that necessarily really concerns me as part of the audit process. And I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I will now provide additional information about the district's annual comprehensive financial report and uniform system of financial records requirements from the Office of the Arizona Auditor General. The annual comprehensive financial report, which we also refer to as the ACFR, is one of the most important documents for any government or school district to establish financial transparency and credibility with its community, creditors, and oversight agencies, as well as investors who purchase the district's bond sales. The report provides a complete overall financial picture of the district, and we publish a copy of our annual ACFR on the district's website for our community to access and review each year. In addition, attached to this agenda item, our ACFR, single audit, and USFR compliance questionnaire are published, and our governing board has received their envelopes with the governance communication that Mr. Maskey highlighted, as well as both the single audited financial statements and a copy of the USFR compliance questionnaire. The ACFR consists of 3 sections: an introductory, financial, and statistical section. The introductory portion orients the reader and guides a community member or board member through the report, and it also includes a transmittal letter. The financial section includes the independent auditor's report that Mr. Maskey referred to and contains management's discussion and analysis. So that's from the district. The financial statements, notes to the financial statements, as well as required supplementary information combining financial statements and schedules. And then, of course, the statistical section toward the end is unaudited, and it does include financial, economic, and demographic information for the last 10 years. The transmittal letter and the management's discussion and analysis, also referred to as an MDA, MDNA, I should say, is in the report and describes the fiscal year's results and key factors influencing those results. And I've highlighted on this slide several notable pages that someone might want to look at. Examples of factors affecting financial conditions includes long-term financial planning, financial analysis, economic impacts, as well as future budget considerations. The USFR compliance questionnaire prescribes the minimum internal controls and policies and procedures that all public school districts in Arizona are required to follow for accounting, financial reporting, budgeting, attendance, procurement, and various other compliance areas to help the Auditor General determine whether a district has attained an acceptable degree of compliance with the USFR requirements. The district's audit firm must complete the entire questionnaire as part of the audit. And Arizona revised statutes do require the Arizona Auditor General to inform a school district if they have fallen below a certain threshold that's prescribed within the USFR compliance questionnaire and related documents. And if they fall below that threshold, they actually are notified by the Arizona Auditor General that they have 90 days to correct those deficiencies. And again, in part, that determination is made on the frequency of the findings and the intensity of the area that's being reviewed. I'll now review the main categories of the USFR compliance questionnaire and management's response to the related audit findings for fiscal year 2022. During the audit, 170 USFR compliance questions were evaluated by the district's external auditor. The main categories of the questionnaire are listed on the next few slides. For the majority of the tested categories, there were no findings for fiscal year 2022, including the areas noted on this slide. That includes governing board and management procedures, budgeting, accounting records, cash, revenues, and supplies inventory. On the next slide, property control expenditures, travel, and credit cards also did not have any compliance findings. In the area of procurement, there was a finding related to one vendor where annual expenditures exceeded the quote threshold by $55, and the district should have issued an RFP or used a cooperative contract. In fiscal year 2023, that vendor is now covered by a cooperative contract. On the next slide, for the categories of classroom site fund and financial reporting, no findings were noted. In payroll, there was a finding regarding required employee I-9 forms not being in 3 tested personnel files. Human Resources has addressed the error and added a step to their procedures as a result of the audit finding. Student attendance reporting also had 2 compliance findings that are being addressed by our IMT staff through additional training and outreach with our schools. In the area of information technology, transportation support, records management, and general long-term debt, no findings were noted. In addition to the actions previously mentioned, the district will continue an ongoing self-review of external compliance requirements within departments and at our schools in the future. The Business Services Department is also continuing to develop training and resource materials for our schools through continuous communication related to not only the USFR compliance questionnaire, but our audit requirements as a whole. And with that, this concludes the presentation this evening, and Mr. Maskey and I are available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers, Mr. Maskey. Thank you both. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
First comments, that was great presentation, and I loved everything that you had laid out for us on the agenda piece. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, and it's a lot of work. I did just have a question because I'm learning everything. So I noticed that you did bring up on, I believe it was slide 12 on the PowerPoint. It's the annual, on the Arizona Department of Education website, it's the annual report, the superintendent's annual report. I noticed that the revenues for the total were different than the total revenues on page 7 of the, which document was this one? Let me figure out the pulled up here. Sorry, let me figure out which one. The fiscal year on the ASFR, the ACFR, sorry. I looked at the Arizona Department of Ed website, and it's the superintendent's annual report. So I just saw that it said that the total for revenue was around 415 million. And then on the report that you have here for ACFR on page 7, it had total revenue 428 million. So sorry it took me forever to get that through, but trying to explain it so you understand what I was looking at. So
Thank you. President Sandoval, Mrs. Rooks, I'll provide the initial response. Then I'll ask Mr. Maschke to add any additional information. Our annual financial report, our AFR, and reporting to the Arizona Department of Education, that's including the superintendent's annual financial report, which is a summation of all of the AFR reporting that school districts do, is on a cash basis, where our audited financial statements have GAAP requirements and are a modified accrual, so they would not match.
Yeah, that's correct. So during the audit process, the management proposes journal entries to go from the cash basis to the modified accrual and accrue some of those revenues that have been received after fiscal year end but are earned during the current year, whereas the AFR is more so on a cash basis. You record what comes in through the end of 6/30, and then there's that cutoff period.
thank you for answering that. I also then I know that we brought up on the slides, there were a few findings in relation to like absences and whatnot. What do we do with those? Are those reported? Obviously it's in the audit, but is there extra reports that we have to make for those findings?
Thank you, President Sandoval, Mrs. Rooks, members of the governing board. Our audit and compliance questionnaire is submitted to the Arizona Auditor General as well as ADE. And there's perpetual attendance reporting throughout the year, through our 40th day, 100th day, and through the full 180-day calendar each school year. And so if there was an error with an absence reporting and subsequent correction, it gets included in that next periodic report, and our ADM is adjusted accordingly.
Thank you for answering that. No more. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing, questions, comments?
I just wanted to say thank you for all the time and effort that this has taken on your department and putting and doing all of this, and I appreciate it. Looking forward to diving into all of this big, huge packet, so thank you. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, Maschke, Mr. Maschke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Mrs. Myers, both of you. I always say this every time we go through this process, and when you look at the findings and the fact that the district, our business services team, is always highly decorated and recognized for their diligence and fidelity in how we manage our dollars as, again, the 4th largest school district in our state, right? It's not a small task because, the management isn't just within these walls. We have all of our sites, et cetera, vendors that you just spoke of, right? What's most impresses me by this team, we talked about our ESSER dollars and, the funding channels that were a little more diverse than they have been prior to COVID, right? And managing those dollars in that process to ensure that our dollars are appropriated into the classroom, centered around student success, and ensuring that every student every day has an equitable opportunity to be successful and thrive and be successful beyond our walls. So your ability to have that mindset, from an accounting regard, managing those dollars in a way that, our public, should also be very proud of. I mean, because these are public dollars that are coming in for the most part. I mean, there's diversity in the revenue that comes into the district, but there is public funding that comes in, and you are absolutely managing those dollars in a way that's just, from a stewardship perspective, that is just unparalleled. So, Ms. Myers, thank you and your team for that continued effort. Ms. Maschke, thank you as always, for taking the time to provide that oversight and understand where we may have opportunities. But in the years that I've been on this board, like I said, I'm in my 7th year. Our business service team is just, amongst the best, without question.
Well,
So thank you both.
Thank you, President Sandoval and members of the governing board. If I may also acknowledge every department, every school, from transportation to food service, to the secretary at the front of an elementary school, to our high school bookstore managers. Everyone has a piece of the management of our compliance. And we do training, and our schools are aware of the requirements, and they do their best. And so really it is every team member throughout the district that is part of this process that we're reporting tonight. And I just, from the business services team, would like to thank all of our staff, both in the departments and at the schools, for their assistance for not only last year, but this year as well. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Were you going to say something, Dr. Rounds?
Yeah, President
go ahead.
Sandoval, if I may. Yes, Ms. Myers is absolutely right. To come through an audit, you saw over the last few years, 3 findings, 4 findings, and the findings that those are. If our public truly understood how massive the work is around that, and I appreciate Ms. Myers talking about all the different employees that have a hand in making sure that the data that we collect and the information that we have is spot on, is truly extraordinary. And so I appreciate you thanking them. But I also want to add my thanks to Ms. Myers and her team, because it's her leadership and it is her team that works hard every single day to make sure to support all of those people who are supporting our students. So Ms. Myers, thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Dr. Reynolds. Thank you both.
Thank you. And if I may ask, we do need a roll call vote, please, to accept this year's audit, fiscal year 2022.
You got it. All right. With that said, thank you for that, Ms. Myers. I do need a motion to approve, really the motion to accept the fiscal year 2022 audit reports and compliance questionnaire.
I'll motion that we approve accept the presentation of the Peoria Unified School District's annual financial audit report for fiscal year 2022.
I'll second that. Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, we have a motion made by Mrs. Rooks and a second made by myself. If you can run us through a voice vote, that would be great.
Thank you. President Sandoval?
Yay.
Ms. Rooks?
Yay.
Ms. Ewing?
Yay.
All right, motion passes with 3 yays and 2 absent. Mrs. Myers, Mr. Maschke, thank you both very much. Have a great evening. Thank you, board members. All right, moving on to 8.2, temporary extension of summer school rate of pay for certified and classified staff. Mrs. Vesely, welcome.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, once again, I am bringing a request for consideration to temporarily increase the compensation for eligible employees who work summer school, summer activities. The current rate of pay for certified staff during summer work is $25 an hour, and classified staff in the summer is minimum wage, which is $13.85 an hour. Over the last 2 years, we've brought this consideration to the board with the use of the additional ESSER grant funds that helps to support the learning loss of our students due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to have these funds available specifically for summer school and learning loss to support these increases. The current average salary for our certified teachers is $54,578. That averages to an hourly rate of approximately $36 to $37 an hour. Our classified staff hourly rate does not really take into account that our support staff will continue to perform the same duties as they would during the school year. And so in essence, it is an extension of their typical work calendar to support student learning loss in the summer. Our budget team is currently meeting, and they are reviewing many different requests for compensation for the 23-24 school year. But due to our current salary structure, the funding source again for this summer work is going to be coming out of our ESSER grant funds. And so through the work of our budget team, this could be a discussion to permanently look at this rate of pay. But at this time, we would like to request that you approve the temporary pay increase for summer school and summer activities. That would be increasing the certified staff rate from $25 an hour to $40 an hour, and to increase the classified rate of pay from $13.85 to the individual's typical hourly rate of pay for like positions through July 31st, 2023. I would like to also add that when we're looking at the classified positions, if you remember last year when we spoke about the classified positions, our classified employees would get their typical rate of pay if they were going into a like position. So for example, if an instructional assistant was going to work an instructional assistant position in the summer, they would get their typical rate of pay that they would during the school year. If an assistant was going to go and do custodial work, they would get the rate of pay for that particular job. So that's how we're delineating between the two. We can pay their typical rate if they were doing their like job. So at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Vesely. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
The only question I would have, and you know, if you don't have it now, it's fine, and you know, get it to me whenever, is I've been following this, that we've been doing this each summer with the ESSER funds for addressing student learning loss and having the temporary increase for our staff. So I just want to know where we're at for that learning loss piece each summer that we've done using the ESSER funds to increase compensation for our employees. Where is our progress for all of the students in all the schools for the learning loss? Because I support having that for the summer for staff, for students. They need it. But I just want to make sure that when we're using the ESSER funds, we're really looking at the trajectory of where our students are, where they were before versus now. So I don't know if that can come later, but just, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that could be an item that you request for future, like a board report or something like that.
So, thanks.
Absolutely, we have it down. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing, questions, comments?
I really appreciate all the staff that and the opportunities that the students have had over the summers to address that learning loss. It's been very, very important, and I think a big piece of that is making sure our staff is willing to come back and help with that. So I think this is a great opportunity for our staff to be able to offer this out while we have this. So I appreciate you bringing this to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ewing. Yeah, Mrs. Vesely, I mean, this is a line item that I've always supported. I mean, it's, I've always said, you know, we get paid for the value that we add. And, you know, while we have a long way to go with regard to our teachers and staff, we're heading in the right direction. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, I think this hourly rate, the $25 an hour, is something that we've had for quite some time. I believe even before I was elected as a governing board member. And you stated earlier that, you know, having discussions around, you know, making that $40 an hour, you know, a kind of a minimum now, right, as we move forward, is right, without question. So, as always, I fully support this temporary pay increase for summer, but looking forward to having those discussions on making that more of a permanent hourly rate moving forward. So thank you for that. If no further questions or comments, I do need a motion to approve It's going to be a little lengthy. A temporary pay increase for summer school and summer interventions activities, increasing the certified staff rate of pay from $25 an hour to $40 an hour, and increasing the classified rate of pay from $13.85 an hour to their typical hourly rate of pay for like positions through July 31st, 2023.
I will second that.
Actually, yours will be the motion.
Sorry, I will motion for that. Thank you.
I will second.
All right. Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, we have a motion made by Mrs. Ewing and a second by Mrs. Rooks. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes with 3 yeas and 2 absent. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Ms. Vesely, thank you. All right, moving on to 8.3, second read of policy section JFABDA. I know Dr. Davidson is not with us. Dr. Reynolds, is there someone, is that you?
We have with us tonight the amazing Dr. Hernandez, who is filling in for Dr. Davidson.
Dr. Hernandez, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, Cabinet, and community. This policy has been updated and the regulation to conform to law that educating students in foster care is a collaboration between schools, child welfare agencies, and ADE. Mandated collaboration includes assigning a district point of contact for children in foster care and notifying ADE of the district point of contact assignee. Definitions of children in foster care, school of origin, and best interest determination were amended or added to reflect U.S. Department of Education non-regulatory guidance regarding students in foster care. In short, this policy addresses removing barriers for students. I stand for any questions.
Thank you for that. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
Nope, no questions, comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ewing?
No questions, thank you.
I don't have any questions either. So with that said, I do need a motion to approve changes to policy JFABDA as presented.
I will motion 8.3 second read of policy section JFABDA.
I'll second that. Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, we have a motion made by Mrs. Rooks and a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. All right, motion passes with 3 yeas and 2 absent. Thank you, board members. Dr. Hernandez, thank you. All right, moving on to our discussion items 9.1, first read of policy section IKF. Dr. Hernandez, welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, Cabinet, and community. In response to House Bill 2632, policy IKF was updated in October of 2022. During the revision process, Peoria Unified specific language was inadvertently removed. This first read this evening of policy IKF includes revisions to return the Peoria specific language relative to first, the required number of credits for graduation, the process for addressing transfer student credits, and the opportunity to earn state seals. All updates to policy IKF in response to House Bill 2632 remain in the policy, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. Board members, questions, comments? Mrs. Rooks?
Nope, no questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rooks. Mrs. Ewing?
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any at this time either. Dr. Hernandez, thank you very much. All right, moving on to our informational reports. 10.1, report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms. Eric?
President Sandoval, members of the board, I wanted to share that we are now looking for community members, parents, elected officials that would like to join us on our next field trip. As you know, our field trips take us out and about into our community. We are pleased to host that on March 14th at Ironwood High School, Marshall Ranch Elementary School, and Desert Valley Elementary. So we'll be sharing more information with you board members as well as the rest of our community.
Do you have a date for that?
March 14th.
March 14th? You probably said that, didn't you?
That's okay, President Sandoval.
Thank you for that, Ms. Harry. All right, 10.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and community. Yesterday, the Senate approved HCR 2001, a joint resolution previously passed by the House on February 7th to override the aggregate expenditure limit for the current school year. Without this legislative action, Peoria Unified would have been required to reduce our budget by $52 million effective April 1st, and districts throughout Arizona would not have been able to spend funding that was previously appropriated and budgeted for the current fiscal year. This legislative action is a one-year solution, as the aggregate expenditure limit will need to be lifted again in fiscal year 2024. A permanent solution will require voter approval in the future to amend the Arizona Constitution and the current expenditure limit that was originally established back in 1980. And with that, I conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Any questions, comments on that one, board members? No?
Nope, no
Okay.
question, comments.
All right, well, great news. Yeah, thank you for that. All right, 10.3, budget, facilities, planning, and construction report. These reports are on our website for your reviewing at your convenience. 10.4, district budget report for the month of December 2022, also on our website for your viewing. Other business, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Mrs. Rex, any items that you would like to readdress this evening?
None at this time.
All right, Mrs. Ewing?
None at this time, thank you.
I don't have any either. 11.2, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Mrs. Rooks, any items that you'd like to request?
Yes, I do have 3. I wanted to obviously look at the learning loss recovery from the ESSER 3 funds following those for our students. I also wanted to...
Just to clarify, that's the summer school programming.
Right, summer school program,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Yes, thank you.
So Mrs. Rooks, if you can separate the 3, so is that one?
Yes, so that's one.
Okay, so we need a second for that to move that forward.
I will second that.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I would also like to look at the safety grant through the Arizona Department of Ed, more information surrounding that school safety grant, what it looks like, bringing it to the board in a presentation so we can have a discussion on the needs for that grant at each school in the district.
Dr. Reynolds, clear?
Yes, I think so. We're in the process, our schools are in the process of applying for that. So maybe we'll get a timeline first that we could report on and just report out to all the board, maybe in a Friday report on what that plan looks like for our schools as they're applying for the SRO grant as well as the other grant. Is that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
Last one, I would like to see a discussion and a policy on the situation regarding making accommodations at schools for bathrooms with our students, just because there seems to be a lot going on. So I would like to bring that to the board to have a discussion and creating a policy regarding that situation.
And
Go ahead, Dr. Reynolds.
nope, I think you're going to say the same thing I am.
I thought we had that as requested already.
Yeah, we can
and
put
something
that down. Yes, that's already on the previously requested list.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Mrs. Ewing, any items that you'd like to request for a future governing board meeting?
You and I spoke about this, but there's the new executive order that's out. Executive Order 7 about creating a teacher retention, I forget what the last part of it was.
Task force?
Yes, task force, thank you, is once we determine who might be those applications. I would love to have, it can be in a Friday report, a summary of, once we're through that process, of who might be applying to be a part of that, be submitting, and how we could support them, if there's any supports that they might need for
And
that.
maybe we'll just add who's applying and then who was successful?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a good
Okay.
part.
If any, okay.
Hopefully all. Right?
Yep.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Just to make it formal. Any other items, Mrs. Ewing? Nope. All right. I've got a few. So I stated earlier, I've been a board member going, I'm in my 7th year. And so one of the items I think is important that we, continue to just refresh, our, really our memories and really our standards around is, so what my ask on this item is to be included. You okay there, sir?
Sorry.
That's okay. Is to be included in a study session, is our governing board code of conduct and ethics. I think these are guiding principles that guide us as leadership, as members of this governing board, again, to really influence safe and supportive work environments and learning environments for that matter. So that's my ask to add that discussion on in a study session, future study session. So I'll just need a second on that to formalize that.
I will second that.
And did you have a question on that, Doctor? Okay. All right. And the other line item, we've all received them over the last, maybe 48, 72 hours around executive sessions. And, I think it's important for the public to really, truly understand, what those means and maybe what they don't mean. I do know an email went out, but I think not all of our public gets those emails. So that said, I would like to have a discussion in a study session around executive sessions.
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Ricks. And the last item, we've been talking about safety a lot this evening. I know as a district, we took a look at our sites and kind of assessed them, and we went through and to understand where we're at, what the needs are. And this could be in a Friday report, is where we're at on the assessments, and if we're complete, perfect. And then what those assessments revealed, right? Kind of the list of needs, and then where we're at in fulfilling on those needs, right? And even one more category, right, would be the barriers to fulfill, right? Whether it's financial resources, human capital, whatever it is, just an understanding why maybe some of the line items, we're having a challenge with. Does that make sense?
I just want to clarify, you're referring to our SEPTED audits?
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, we would want to talk about how we would walk through that data and maybe get you some advice on what data would be appropriate to review.
Okay. Again, Friday report's fine, but yeah, we can have that discussion. I mean, I'll just need a second on that to formalize that.
I will second that.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. All right, if no other requests from the governing board for future agendas, we're going to move to 12.1. I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting at 8:12 p.m.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting at 8:12 p.m.
I'll second that. Mr. Rubert, Mrs. Hogg, we have a motion made by Mrs. Rooks and a second made by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. All right, motion passes with 3 yeas and 2 absent. Thank you, board members, Mrs. Hogg, Mr. Rubert. Thank you both for stepping in this evening. Great job. Everybody, community, thank you for attending this evening. Have a great evening. Stay safe.